Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're embarking on a journey into the unknown. A place where fact and fiction blur and the truth stays just out of reach. Delving into the darkest, most chilling unsolved mysteries that have haunted investigators for decades. These are the stories that keep you up at night, the tales that make you question everything. Bizarre deaths in the frozen wilderness, cryptic codes that have never been cracked. These cases defy all logical explanation, so buckle up. We're about to explore the shadows. Each mystery is a puzzle with missing pieces, a narrative that abruptly stops without a conclusion. Stranger than any horror movie, because they are real, the evidence, the theories, the lingering questions. I'll present the facts as we know them, the rest is up for interpretation. Turn down the lights and dive into the darkness, a tragedy deep in the unforgiving Ural Mountains. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. Our first story takes us to the icy slopes of the Ural Mountains in Russia back in the winter of 1959. A group of 9 experienced hikers led by Igor Dyatlov set out on a challenging expedition. They were not prepared for what awaited them on the slopes of a mountain ominously named Kolotsiakl, or Dead Mountain. When days turned into weeks with no word, a search party was dispatched. What they found was a scene of pure, unadulterated chaos. Their tent, pitched on the side of the mountain, had been sliced open from the inside. It was clear the hikers had fled in a panic, leaving behind their shoes, warm clothing, and all their supplies. The searchers followed a trail of footprints, some from bare feet, leading down the slope towards a nearby forest. Under a large cedar tree they found the first 2 bodies, those of Yuri Krivonyshenko and Yuri Doroshenko. They were dressed only in their underwear, and it appeared they had tried to climb the tree. The branches were broken up to 5 meters high. Over the next 2 months, the remaining bodies were discovered. The final 4 hikers were found more than 2 months later, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine. And this is where the story takes an even darker turn. These 4 had suffered catastrophic internal injuries. One of them, Lyudmila Dubinina, was missing her tongue and eyes. The official investigation concluded that the hikers died from a compelling natural force. Theories range from an avalanche to a secret Soviet weapons test. Some even whisper of something more paranormal, pointing to local folklore or even a UFO sighting reported nearby. To this day, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of Russia's most profound and disturbing mysteries. On March 8, 2014, the world watched as a routine flight simply vanished from the sky. Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur bound for Beijing. 239 souls were on board. It was a clear night. The Boeing 777 was in the hands of an experienced crew. About 40 minutes into the flight, as it passed from Malaysian to Vietnamese airspace, the plane's transponder was switched off. The last voice, "Good night, Malaysian 370. Then, silence. Disappeared from civilian radar screens. Military radar tracked it for another hour. The aircraft deviated sharply from its planned flight path. It turned west, then headed out over the Indian Ocean. For hours it flew on, a ghost with no known destination. The world's largest, most expensive search operation was launched. They found nothing. It was as if a 200-foot airliner had been plucked from existence. The only physical evidence, scattered debris, pieces washed up on the shores of Africa. The black boxes, the key to the final moments, remain lost in the deep. The most accepted theory, mass murder-suicide by the pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. Other theories, catastrophic mechanical failure, a hijacking gone wrong. Fringe theories persist. Remote cyber hijacking, a possible shootdown covered up by governments. Without wreckage and flight recorders, we have a void of information. A modern-day ghost story. 239 people boarded and never arrived. The fate of MH370 remains the biggest mystery in modern aviation. In the early morning hours of December 1, 1948, a man's body was discovered on Somerton Park Beach in Adelaide, Australia. He was dressed impeccably in a suit and tie, his head propped against a seawall, a half-smoked cigarette resting on his collar. He carried no wallet, no identification. All the tags on his clothing had been meticulously removed. Inside was a small, rolled-up piece of paper printed with 2 words, Tamam Shud. The phrase was torn from the final page of a rare edition of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. But inside, investigators found something even more cryptic. Faint pencil markings that looked like a coded message. To this day, his identity, his cause of death, and the meaning of the cryptic code remain unknown. Now we travel to a lonely, isolated farmstead in Bavaria, Germany, called Hinterkaifeck. In the spring of 1922, This remote property became the scene of one of the most brutal and baffling crimes in German history. On the night of March 31st, all 6 of them were systematically and viciously murdered with a mattock, a type of pickaxe. The previous maid had quit months earlier, claiming the farmhouse was haunted after hearing footsteps in the attic. Andreas had told neighbors about finding a strange newspaper and footprints in the fresh snow leading to the farmhouse, but none leading away. What makes this case exceptionally chilling is what happened after the murders. The killer didn't just flee, they stayed. For several days after the family was dead, the killer remained at Hinterkaifeck. The killer lived amongst the bodies of their victims for days before finally disappearing without a trace. Over 100 suspects were interviewed over the years, but no one was ever charged. Was it a robbery gone wrong? Was it a crime of passion? Or was it a stranger, a drifter who had taken up residence in their attic? The heads of the victims were removed for examination and lost during World War II, and the farm itself was demolished a year later, erasing the crime scene forever. In November of 1970, a university professor and his 2 young daughters were hiking in a remote valley in Norway known as Isdalen, or the Ice Valley. In a secluded spot, off the beaten path, they stumbled upon a horrifying scene: the partially burned body of a woman. The scene itself was perplexing. The woman's body was found lying on her back, her arms in a boxer-like pose, a bottle of St. Halvard liqueur, 2 plastic water bottles, a plastic passport holder, sleeping pills. Just like the Somerton man, the Isdal woman was a ghost. All the labels on her clothing had been snipped off. Police discovered 2 suitcases left in a locker at the Bergen railway station. Inside, wigs, non-prescription glasses, several changes of clothes. Police discovered the woman had been traveling all over Norway and Europe using at least 9 different fake identities, constantly changing her appearance. Our final mystery takes us to the hills of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in August of 1966. A young boy flying a kite on Vintim Hill stumbled upon a gruesome discovery: the bodies of 2 men, lying side by side. The men were identified as Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana, 2 electronics technicians from a nearby town. They were dressed in neat suits and waterproof coats, but on their faces, they wore something truly bizarre: crude, homemade lead masks. The scene was meticulously arranged. Next to the bodies was an empty water bottle, 2 wet towels, and a notebook. In it was a cryptic handwritten note: 1630, be at the specified location. 1830. Ingest capsules. After effect, protect metals. Await mask signal. What capsules? What effect? What was the mask signal? They had told their families they were going to Sao Paulo to buy materials for work, carrying a large sum of money. A waitress at a bar was the last person known to have seen them alive. She said Miguel seemed very nervous and kept checking his watch. Theories abound, each stranger than the last. The most popular one involves UFOs and spiritualism. The men were known to be part of a group of scientific spiritualists who built strange devices trying to contact aliens or spirits. To this day, no one knows what happened on Vintim Hill. And there you have it. 7 doors to the unknown, 7 stories with the final chapter ripped out. From the frozen peaks of the Urals to a sun-drenched Australian beach, these mysteries remind us that for all our science and all our logic, there are still things in this world that we simply cannot explain. Each case leaves us with more questions than answers, a chilling sense of unease that lingers long after the story is told. Were these victims of human cruelty, tragic accidents, or did they brush up against something far stranger? Something from beyond our understanding? The truth is, we may never know. The trails have gone cold, the witnesses are gone, and the evidence has faded into history. But that's what makes these stories so enduring. They become a canvas for our own imaginations and our deepest fears. They challenge us to think, to speculate, and to piece together the fragments of the puzzle. That's why I want to turn it over to you. What's your theory? What is your theory on the lead masks case? Do you think the Somerton man was a spy? Let me know your thoughts on any of these cases down in the comments. I read them all. I'm genuinely curious to see what you come up with. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the dark. If you enjoy exploring the world's greatest unsolved mysteries, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Until then, stay curious, question everything, and maybe sleep with a light on.